Alrighty, so I'm back home after a quick 2-day trip and pretty much a weekend getaway to the Twin City, watching Minnesota, of course, play at Allianz Field in a playoff game and come home pretty happy after they move on into the next round and they join pretty much three other teams that are able to get the sweep to head into the conference semifinal. But for four other teams, and really for eight other teams, that is. They're going to be having a game free. We're going to have four games that's going to be happening somewhere next week in terms of game free to decide who's going to be the four teams that is going to move on into the conference semifinal. But one thing we also learned that is that we are going to get a new champion in this 2024 MLS season, and for the 12th straight year, we will not have a repeat as an MLS Cup champion. In fact, this was probably the biggest surprise, I think, not only in this playoffs, but maybe in recent memory. So, coming into this game between the Red Bulls and Columbus, and by the way, I was actually able to watch these games while I was on the plane, albeit the Delta Wi-Fi was a little bit spotty at time, and at times I had to deal with buffering, and I might have missed some important detail in some of these games. But yeah, as I said, coming into this series, nobody would have thought that Columbus would get eliminated in the first round. I mean, this was a team that had all the momentum coming into this. The Red Bulls were the one that didn't have any momentum whatsoever, and we thought that decision day game between the Red Bulls and Columbus was maybe a preview of what we're gonna see, and that so Metro moment is bound to happen. And yet, what we saw in this game was it feels like Columbus was the one that did the that so Metro moment in these last two games. And speaking of that so Metro moment, the Red Bulls did that too in this game as well. But it is very rare to say that the New York Red Bulls would do a that so Metro moment and they still end up on the winning side, and not to mention winning a PK shootout. I mean, I'm pretty sure Red Bulls fans must feel like, so this is how it feels like to be on the winning side of winning a PK shootout, since they haven't had a lot luck in those lately. Now, in the first half, in a must-win game, unsurprisingly, Columbus is on the front foot. They were looking for an early lead. Cucho would miss wide from close range before he would put it just high on the free kick. And again, early on, it looked like it's gone according to script. It looks like Columbus might be scoring an early goal, just like they did on decision day the last time both of these team play at Red Bull Arena. Though Nealis with the Red Bulls first shot, but he puts it high on the header from the corner. And I thought the Red Bulls has done a good job, at least this time. Unlike the decision day game, they didn't give up a goal early on to find themselves down relatively early. They really grow into this game, and we're looking for the opener that themselves. They also mentioned the Red Bulls have been winless in their last seven home game, which kind of sounds about right about this team, because this has been a problem for this team 2 years ago. It was less of a problem last year. They were a little bit better playing at Red Bull Arena, but yeah, this year it feels like that problem has gone back. And I think part of that is the style that they, of course, have played. When you're a team that doesn't usually have a lot of possession, you are a team that tends to do better on the road, because when you're at home, you're kind of the team that, for the most part, has to be that protagonist, and has to be the team that dominate the possession. And again, this is the thing that the Red Bulls don't want to do, and the principle of energy drink soccer as well, that this is a team that is not going to be the team that will dominate possession and likes to press team at sorts. But yeah, as I mentioned, they've been winless in the last seven games. That just also add into the fact that this feels improbable. The fact that the Red Bulls were gonna pull this off, and it looks like Columbus might be heading back to Lower Dogcom Field for its pivotal game free. Cucho would then puts one over the bar on the free kick. With then had some coming together as Morgan and Farsi kind of had some choice words and showed some displeasure. Again, when you have these best of three series, when you play against each other in a short amount of period, yeah, there's going to be some tippiness that is going to happen. So that being said, in the 39th minute, Post would deny Rossi, but it Psycho and Cucho had a chance to get the opener, but he also struck the same post on the same sequence. I immediately wrote the Red Bulls must be kissing that right post if they somehow pull off this upset. And again, this kind of feel very un-Red Bull, like the fact that they are the one that's supposed to be having those kind of moment and not the Columbus crew. But up to this point, again, maybe you kind of had a signs that something special might be happen, and something improbable could be happen in this one. Cornell then denied Rossi, but Champos gets the rebound and his shot was deflected. away. That also came off a bad turnover from the Red Bulls. Yeah, that is something you do not want to do against the Columbus Crew, giving ball away in a bad spot. More times than not, the Crew is going to punish you for it. There was a shout for a penalty for the Crew not given. Again, the Crew was knocking on the door, but the problem is they couldn't solve Cornell. They didn't solve Cornell in the last game up to this point. They couldn't solve him either, and the clinical finishing, which again, this is one of the more clinical team in the regular season, just nowhere to be found in the postseason. But we do have to have time with the scoreless in this game. In the second half, there was a shout for a handball by the Crew not given. Just like the first half, Columbus was on the front foot early, but unlike the first half where they were creating some dangerous chances, they weren't really doing so, at least in the beginning of the second half. They must have heard that, and maybe Max Arfston probably saw that and took it personally because he scored in the 55th minute from Cucho and more. Oh, actually, I don't know why I wrote Morgan there. Obviously, Lewis Morgan was not is not part of the same team. So yeah, this goal of course was scored from Arson and Cucho to give Columbus a 1-0 lead, and you just kind of sense, well, yeah, it looks like Columbus is gonna walk away with a pretty easy win, and they got this in the bag and started to maybe get a second one, right? Well, no. Instead, the Red Bulls waste no time to equalize, as in the 64th minute. You know when something improbable is going to happen in this game when Dante Van Zier gets on the score sheet. A guy that has been just one of the most snake bitten player this season, and really been snake bitten ever since he have joined the New York Red Bulls a couple of years ago. Well, he scored from Frostberg and Morgan to tie the game up at one apiece, and this was also a moment where Columbus thought that the ball went out of play. And there's a reason, as an old saying go, you always want to play till the whistle. When the whistle hasn't blown, you can't just quit on a play, and especially with the days of VAR, even if the ball did win out of play, they might go back to VAR to check that. You can't just simply think that's going to be a way to bail you out. And yeah, I actually didn't get a good look whether or not if the ball went out. Maybe it came very very close to do so, and that maybe could be a talking point if someone on the MLS Reddit page can post that footage. But nevertheless, the Red Bulls have tied the game up at one apiece. Morgan looked for another, but he puts it right to Scholte, and again, the momentum was all with the Red Bulls up to this point, and you can sense that the defending champs are on the ropes a bit with the way that the Red Bulls were pressing for a second. Scholte would deny Morgan from close range, and then on the ensuing corner, the ball was loose in the 4-yard area. I think Scholte was trying to punch that one away, didn't quite get there, and fortunate for him and the Crew, they were just about to clear this one away. But there is no doubt the Red Bulls are pounding on the door. They were pressing hard to try to get the lead, and they had a chance to do so in the 77th minute as a penalty was given to the Red Bulls after Frostberg Frostberg was brought down by Camacho in the box. Really, Camacho has been really bad for in these last couple of games. He has single-handedly has been a liability for this Columbus side, and it's kind of a shame that is the case because throughout this season he's actually been very very good alongside with that Red Bulls backline. But man, Camacho in these last couple of games has been a bit of a liability with just these silly penalty kick concede, and also not to mention making some mistakes at the back as well with some poor giveaway. So while there was also a brief check to see whether or not indeed that was a penalty, Shaburko and Neal's, they had some choice words with each other. Again, I have a sense that with the way that what's kind of interesting is that unlike like the other best of three series, this is the third game that both of these teams have played. So both of these teams must have been tired of playing each other. When you play each other that many time in a span of just two weeks, you know that there's going to be that not only extra chip on the shoulder, but there's going to be that unpleasantness between both of these teams that they're kind of tired of playing each other again. And by the time when we get to game number three, or even in this case game number two, it's definitely going to boil over, and that's kind of what I'll be interested to see in terms of all these game three, whether or not if emotion is going to start to come, because it's a pivotal game three, and not to mention when you play each other so many times in a short amount of period, tempers is definitely going to start to show. But that being said, Emo Frostberg steps up to take the penalty. He usually does not miss from the spot, and he doesn't here. He made it 2-1 in favor of the Red Bulls. Rossi did look to answer, but he hits it right to Cornell before Carmona would hit one right to Schulte. What has happened to this Crew defense? Because they were just having a meltdown ever since they they gave up the equalizer. And in fairness, they've been having a meltdown in this postseason too. I mean, going back to the previous game, if it wasn't for the Red Bulls doing their typical go not showing the ability to finish, I mean that game could have been easily 3 or 4 nothing in favor of the Red Bulls. The Crew defense have just completely cratered in the playoffs. But that being said, there was some good news for the Crew as there was 12 minutes of stoppage time that was announced. That's been a theme in terms of this playoff so far, where there's has just whenever a game is close, there's just some excessive amount of stoppage time. I think this is kind of the theme also in the regular season as well, and at times it's kind of a little bit excessive. But I guess maybe what we saw in the 2022 World Cup kind of started that theme that we've seen other leagues trying to do so where hey if it's going to be close we're going to make sure this game is going to keep going and make sure that we're not going we might create some late drama late in the game. So that being said, in the 5th minute stoppage time, Cucho had a header that was deflected and goes over. But then in the 6th minute of stoppage time, Christian Ramirez he scored from Matan to tie the game up at 2 apiece. There you go. That's the that's so Metro show moment that we've been waiting for. You knew that was going to be the case. I mean, I'm pretty sure a Red Bulls fan they were dreading when they heard the number 12 being raised on the fourth official board. They knew that that so Metro moment is going to happen, and it did there. And this is where you think, well, looks like this is gonna head back to game three. I mean, the Red Bulls they have been terrible in the PK shootout. Surely they can't pull this off, right? Carlos Cornell had other ideas because in the PK shootout, not only Daniel Edelman gets the winning penalty in round number 7. This is by far the deepest we have seen in terms of a game that gone to a PK shootout. But Carlos Cornell, he basically adds to the numbers of goalkeepers that has come up big in terms of these PK shootout. We saw Dane Sinclair did that yesterday, and then we saw Christian Kalina also did it on Friday as well. But he adds his list of names, creating some massive save here. In fact, making 3 straight save between round 5 to round 7 to give the Red Bulls a chance to win the PK shootout. And while the Red Bulls they kind of messed up a little bit to win this PK shootout. Eventually, Daniel Edelman buries it in round number 7, and the New York Red Bulls they knock off the defending MLS Cup champions Columbus Crew with 5-4 PK shootout win and move on into the conference semifinal. And I'm pretty sure pretty much everybody bracket has been busted. I know it. Mine has been busted. I mean, I predicted Columbus was going to go all the way to the conference final, and we are going to have an Inter Miami versus Columbus conference final matchup, and now there could be a sense that maybe that could not happen because if Atlanta can pull off an upset, I mean, I think after this one, you got to say Atlanta fans probably are watching this one and think, hey, if they can knock off the defending MLS Cup champion, we might be doing something even more extraordinary, and that of course is knock off John Gabbard and also Apple TV, the favorite team in the play in game number 3. Now that being said, that game is on the road compared to this was being at home. But yeah, I think this game just kind of shows you the magic of the MLS playoffs and also the playoffs in general. There's a reason why everybody said that when you get into the playoffs, all bets are off. I mean, things could be interesting. We also saw it in the play-in round as well, where you just kind of had a sense that this might be a playoffs where there's going to be some really big surprises that's going to be thrown in the air, and there we go. We've seen it right now. We kind of saw it a little bit yesterday with Minnesota knocking off RSL with 6 seed beating a 3 seed. But I think this is even more impressive because again, nobody saw this coming. If you said this is coming, you are clearly lying. As again, the Red Bulls moving on into the conference semifinal. It's their first win in a playoff series since 2018. That just also shows you how improbable that this is when you have a team that has simply been cursed in these last couple of years, and that so metro moment just constantly being happen in round number 1, and yet somehow that is being delayed at least for later round. And again, Columbus. I mean, people will say that maybe obviously the fatigue eventually got to them. I would argue. I think it's just you're going to you see this happen before, and we've seen it before in the past where you have a team that had a good regular season as well. But when you don't perform in the playoffs and when you don't show up, which is something I can't believe I'm saying about a Wilfred Nancy team because they seems like they go up time after time this year. Although you could argue not so much this year with the way that they kind of also choked in the Concacaf in the final as well when they were the one that looked like they were heavily favored to win that competition against Pachuca. But the shots in this one, 18 shots for 11 that the Red Bulls had, 5 shots on goal for the 4 that Columbus had, 2 shots off target for the 4 that Columbus had, 7 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that the Red Bulls had, and possession-wise, 60% possession compared to 40% possession the New York Red Bulls has in this game. Now, moving on into the next game, and because this game was relatively long and it went to a PK shootout pretty deep, that means I missed a majority part of the first half. And keep in mind, I was on the plane. I can only watch one game at a time. So yeah, I basically missed at least the first 20 minutes of this first half. But from what I heard, it seems like Seattle was on the front foot in the beginning, and Houston started to wrestle the momentum back toward them. And that's where we start in the 25th minute, because this is right around the time when I started to check into this game. Sevchenko would hit it right to Fry. The shots were 4-3 for Dynamo up to this point. The Sounders continue to have most of the possession, but just like game one, it just completely fall apart when they get to the final third. This is a problem for the Sounders. We saw in the beginning of the season, and I think we saw it again in this one against the Dynamo, and really in both games where it's just that final third quality. It's just not been there, and it's kind of been the story more times or not this season. They just haven't been really good linking up in the final third play whatsoever. Though that being said, I think Rusnak didn't play in this game for the Sounders, and maybe that kind of plays a big part because Rusnak really come in good for the Sounders late in the season, and they really miss him in this game in general. But in the 40th minute, we have clogged it, or we have Fry did not nine Ponce, but gave up a rebound there and just about smothered the rebound on this point. But Mikael then just missed on an outstretched shot on the doorstep of goal in the 44th minute, as I thought Houston was knocking on the door and try to get the opener. But we do head to halftime, scoreless between both of these teams. And in the second half, it was kind of the same thing. Fry would deny Ponce from close. Dynamo definitely started the second half the better side. But the problem is, they couldn't get that clinical finishing, and they need to do so, especially that they have to win this game if they want to force a game free. Aliu would then just miss one on an outstretched leg before Herrera hits it right to Fry in the 58th minute. The shots were now 11-6 in favor of Houston up to this point. Artur then curls one that just missed wide from long range. Again, pressure was continued to be mounting for the Dynamo, but how many times I've said that when you don't put that one away, it's going to come back to haunt you, and you just kind of had a sense with the way that, yes, Seattle for the most part hasn't got to into this game besides maybe in the beginning. Is this going to come back to haunt the Dynamo, that they don't get that crucial goal, and then one bad bounce go their way, and all of a sudden Seattle might take the lead. Dorsey then sends one that basically puts into the Gulf of Mexico before Aliu would hits one right to Fry in the 62nd minute. But then in the 66th minute, yeah, Hector Herrera, he's got to remember that this is not CONCACAF. This is MLS nowadays, where in CONCACAF, the reason why I want to mention that and kind of bring that up is Hector Herrera. He is definitely the master of the dark arts at time when it comes to the CONCACAF play, especially during his time with the Mexican national team. But yeah, this is the MLS play. MLS play when it comes to VAR, they definitely are watching everything compared to what we see in CONCACAF. And in this play, Herrera tried to do a Brian Vera here. He tried to be a little bit cheeky here, trying to spit toward the referee, while the referee have his back turned to him, and yeah, that didn't work. And again, in the day of VAR, especially in MLS, they're gonna check everything. They're gonna check every play and every descent that is gonna happen. And while you can definitely get away from this in CONCACAF play, or even in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. You are not going to get away with that in MLS play. So yeah, Hector Herrera, of course, got himself sent off in this play. The Dynamo, for the second consecutive game, are down to 10 men for the rest of the game. And then as they were actually announced that Herrera, of course, were giving his marching order, we kind of had a hot mic moment. Escobar definitely said something explicit, and I think he said something explicit in Spanish, but yeah, they immediately turn off the mic after that. And we've seen this happen in NFL a lot, where when the referee are announcing penalty, and also announcing like reviews. We seen some hot mic kind of moment, but I think that would be the first time we ever seen a hot mic moment in MLS. You know, ever since the introduction with referee announcing the decision of VAR over the stadium. I feel like it was about time that we're gonna have these kind of moment where maybe one of the players not happy with the announcement and they get it the face of the referee while announcing it, and there's the hot mic kind of moment. So that being said, in the 73rd minute, Mikel would head it wide from close range, and for a bit, it looked like Houston, kind of just like what they did in the last game, did very well when it comes to being a man down in this game, and the Sounders had no answer going for on the other end. Well, that quickly changed because Rui Diaz then had a shot that was deflected and goes wide, and then Leva would puts it high from the free kick in the 80th minute as Seattle, for the first time since the beginning of the game, started to get some sustained pressure, and we're looking to try to get that crucial goal late to move on into the next round. And they do in the 86th minute. It's Christian Rodon. He scored from Nuhu and Leva to give the Sounders a 1-0 lead. Yeah, it is very rare you see Nuhu be on the assist chart, let alone on the chart, and the fact that he was able to play this one back to Christian Rodon like that. I mean, I would have never guessed Nuhu would have that kind of thing in his style. Imagine if this actually happened at Lumen Field. Nuhu is definitely a cult hero in the Seattle Sounders fan base. I mean, they would get absolutely jubilated even if he's not on the goal scoring chart. But that being said, there was a shout for a handball in the box for the Dynamo, not given. But then in the third minute of stoppage time, Christian Rodan decided to do a Yamar here. So he unfortunately scored an own goal here. I actually didn't even label own goal here, but yeah, he did a Yamar in this moment. And I mean, Rodon given, Rodon taken. Now that the fact that the game is tied up at one apiece, and it came off a set piece as well. Not great defending there from the Sounders in terms of the set pieces, and just like that, a game that you thought Seattle wrapped this up with a 1-0 win. It's now tied up at one apiece. And then Rodon himself looked for an unorthodox hat trick there. We saw Yamar did it a couple of times in that game against Minnesota a couple of years to what I tried to reference earlier. But yeah, he Rodon himself trying to do that unorthodox hat trick of scoring two goals and then scoring an own goal here in the same game, but he puts this one over, and then Leva will puts it wide on the header as it seems like Seattle was trying to retake the lead late in this game. But just like this game, that we saw between the Red Bulls and the Columbus Crew. This game also goes to a PK shootout, and this is when I'm just like, I really hope this doesn't go super long because there's another game that is gonna happen, and I had a fear that I was gonna miss maybe the start of that game as well. And unfortunately, this one also went pretty deep into the shootout. It went 7 rounds, but one notable thing is that when Fry denied Kovalchik in round number 3, they actually did go to VAR to see whether or not if Fry did came off his line too soon, and he did. So the penalty was retaken. It's the first time we've seen in this playoffs that a penalty has to be retaken because of a goalkeeper coming off his lines too soon. Again, you're a goalkeeper, you cannot have both of your feet coming off the line when you're trying to make the save. That is clearly encroachment, and on the replay rightfully so that was called. But that being said, Fry did make a save in round number 7 to win the PK shootout and the series for the Sounders as he denied Tate Schmidt there. In fact, this PK shootout we had besides the Kovacic miss, we were pretty much 12 for 12 when it comes to the PKs. Nobody were missing their PKs, though near the end you kind of start to see there were signs that maybe somebody was gonna miss the PK because there were a couple that were very close of not actually going in. But ultimately, Tate Schmidt, unfortunate to miss his PK in round number 7 with Fry making the save. And yeah, in the end, the Seattle Sounders pretty much did the same thing that Minnesota did. All they need to do is win 2 PK shootout, and they're moving on into the conference semifinal. And whether you like it or not, that's unfortunately how this playoff format is. And I'm pretty sure, again, this one, maybe some people will hate it even more because one, it's Seattle moving on. Anytime when Seattle go deep in the playoffs, I don't think a lot of people, especially in the West, likes it, especially with the dominance that they had for the past decade. But also, again, when you look at the stats of this game, Houston should have won this one. They had 20 shots compared to 14 that the Sounders had. They had 7 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Sounders had. 3 shots off target compared to 5 that Houston had. Seven shots that was blocked within nine that the Sounders had, and possession wise, 51% possession compared to 49% possession the Sounders has in this game. And yeah, overall, again, this is a classic example of what happened when you don't take your opportunity and it come back to bite you. And for the Dynamo, not taking those chances, and also just a moment of madness for Hector Herrera. And they're done in terms of the first round. There's no repeat in terms of them trying to make it to the Western Conference Final, just like they did last year. And now Seattle, of course, will wait for the winner of the game between the Vancouver Whitecaps and LAFC. Which, speaking of which, let's change forwards and talk about that game right now. So in this game between the Vancouver Whitecaps and LAFC, we will see a game number three in terms of this series as well. And really, in this game, just what I mentioned, that one team were a little bit more clinical in terms of their finishing, and the other team wasn't. That was kind of the theme in their game as well. Although you could argue the Whitecaps, despite the fact that they actually did a rare thing where they actually scored more goals than the shots on goal that they have, because they scored a couple of own goal in this one. Overall, I thought this was a very impressive performance by the Vancouver Whitecaps, and for the most part, they really shut down this LAFC team and really neutralized this attack, which is something that not a lot of time we see that happen to LAFC throughout this season. Now, early on, the first shot of the game did see Chanel heads it over from close range, but then in the 10th minute, Vancouver takes the lead, and it's Ryan Gull who gets the opening goal for the Whitecaps, because of course Ryan Gull gets the opening goal. He has been just absolutely immense so far in the playoffs. And also that came of a rare turnover from LAFC, and they were made to pay in this one. And I'll tell you what, this LAFC backline, they look pretty bad in this game. In fact, two of the goals that they conceded in this one was just some lapse of concentration. And here again, just it is very rare you see LAFC cough up the ball in their own half, and Vancouver will make sure that they were made to pay. And just like that, the Whitecaps take a 1-0 lead. And I immediately wrote, it seems like the momentum was with Vancouver, because they immediately looked like they were pressing for another goal, and they got another one just 3 minutes later. And unfortunately, it's an own goal there from Ryan Holland's head. And it was kind of an unfortunate one, too, because he was trying to deflect that shot away that Ryan Goal was shooting, but unfortunately deflected into your own net. But then the big question I gotta say ask with this LAFC defending: where in the world was the closing down from Ryan Gaul? I mean, this guy that has been just red hot so far in the playoffs, and score a hat trick against the Timbers in the playing round. You need to think about marking him down, not let him that much space and that much time to try to take a shot. Apparently, the LAFC defense didn't get that memo, and they were made to pay again, just like that. It's 2-0 in favor of the Whitecaps in a blink of an eye. You couldn't ask for a better start for Vanni Sartini's side facing an elimination game, and try not to have a repeat of what happened last year in number two between both of these teams in the first round, especially in terms of the controversial finish that happened in that game as well. But in the 17th minute, Pico would look for a third, but he puts it wide here. Man, Fafa Pico, he was immense in this game. And even though he didn't get on the score sheet in this game, he was definitely playing like this is his last game for the Vancouver Whitecaps. And we don't know if that is going to be the case, because there's been talks that you want to go back to the East Coast, you want to join an Eastern Conference team, you want to move on in the off season. But man, he definitely play like this is his last game for the Whitecaps. Really give it all in this one. But at the same time, I thought LAFC was completely rattled. I mean, Vancouver in a must-win game were just putting on a show early. This looked like it could be ugly, and could be very similar to the 5-0 drumming that we saw the Whitecaps put against the Timbers in the playing round. Vesinovic then hits it wide from the free kick before Bawanga puts it high from close range in the 28th minute. Believe it or not, Bawanga actually didn't had a bad game in this one. He had his moments in this game as well, but what also was a problem, besides LAFC being very poor on the defensive side, we're being clinical in front of goal. Goal then had a shot that was deflected off the wall and over on the free kick before Tillman puts it wide from close in the 37th minute, as both of these teams was pushing for the next goal. Armstrong actually had a shot that was deflected and goes wide in the third minute stoppage time, but we do head to halftime with the Whitecaps taking that 2-0 lead early on, and it holds heading into the second half. Though in the second half, whatever Steve Cherundolo said to this team, it definitely worked, because the Whitecaps were we're definitely under siege a little bit early on with LAFC putting the pressure. Giroud just missed wide on the doorstep of goal in the 47th minute before Bawanga hits the sign netting in the 48th. LAFC definitely come out the second half the stronger side. They were pressing to try to get one back. Bogushwin hits one right to Takuoka. Vancouver was having a lot of trouble dealing with LAFC transition early, and that's bad news. If you're the Whitecaps, you do not want to let LAFC get to their transitional game. We know that LAFC is very lethal when they go on the break there, and early on Vancouver was having trouble stopping them. They even had to commit some tactical fouls and take yellow cards just to stop this LAFC transitional play. Ahmed then had a shot that actually took a wicked deflection, and I thought that this one was going to go in with the wicked deflection that it took, but it hits the roof of the net before Veselinovic puts it wide off the volley. Feels like the Whitecaps have kind of woke up after not starting on time in the second half, and they were looking for a third goal. But before that, in the 60th minute, Takaoka absolutely rocked Denis Bouanga on a 1v1. Like, on a 1v1 opportunity, you would definitely bet your money that Bouanga, of course, is going to put away. And while Takaoka has shown that he has had these incredible goal save before, this was a big moment, and what a moment this is. And this could, I think, maybe be the change, the big turning point of this game, because if Bawanga slots that one home, it's 2-1 in favor of the Whitecaps. And now if things can get a little bit nervy, if you're the Whitecaps in a must-win game, and especially for what we see in the drama in the first two games, yeah, you do not want to give LAFC a chance to be back into this game. And Takaoka was making sure that wasn't the case, because he then denied Bawanga again on a shot that was deflected and goes wide. But then the 68th minute, Vancouver made sure that there's no drama, just like what we saw in the first two games. As it's actually another own goal that was scored from Eddie Segura. Originally, the goal was given to Brian White. I mean, I couldn't really tell, did White or Segura the one that was the one that last touched that one, that kind of flicked that one behind. Either way, Vancouver wouldn't care, because they're up 3-0. They were in cruise control in this game, and also not to mention, it's another their goal that was very very preventable from LAFC. That was kind of also a theme, as I said, about this defense, just probably having one of the worst game I've seen throughout this season. Probably right up there in terms of that game when they play against the Quakes at Levi State Stadium. Just there's a lapse of concentration here from a throw in where LAFC just completely switched off because of it. Blackman then hits it wide from close in the 69th minute before White puts it over from close range. By the way, if Tristan Blackman does score in that moment, I wonder if he's going to celebrate against his former team. I mean, I know he definitely didn't leave in the best of term when he was traded to the Whitecaps from LAFC, but it'll be interesting to see whether if he does celebrate against his former team. And I also thought that LAFC seems like they waved the white flag. They kind of did that when Bawanga, of course, was subbed out. They were already thinking about game number 3, but Vancouver wasn't caring about the white flag. They're showing no mercy. They won number 4 in this one. Well, that being said, LAFC did look like they got one back. If it wasn't for Uvik somehow was able to clear the ball off the line. There was a shout for whether or not if that was a handball on Uvik, but on the second look, Uvik does a good job in terms of not only making sure he didn't touch the ball. You can see his hand; he's trying to move away from the ball and make sure he doesn't touch it, but also just kind of deflected that one off the line there. That is a very difficult skill to do when you're a defender. Not only clearing the ball off the line, but when it's coming your way, and try not to make sure your hands touch it, because again, when you touch the ball, whether if it's on a natural or unnatural position in the days of MLS, and really in the days of football now, the days you just don't want to be to have the ball touch your hand, and let the referee make the decision whether or not it is a penalty. Well, that being said, in the third minute stoppage time, Oliveira basically puts 1-2 Alberta. Just kind of sums up the finishing for LAFC. They were just not at it in this game, as Vancouver forced game number 3 with a 3-0 win in this one. Shots in this one pretty even. 15 shots compared to 17 that LAFC had. 2 shots on goal compared to 4 that LAFC had. Both teams had 4 shots off target. 9 shots that was blocked with the 7 that LAFC had, and possessed 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Vancouver has in this game. And again, for Vancouver, they definitely make a statement coming out of this game that they're not done. And I think LAFC must have received that message, because now heading into game number three. It'll be interesting to see what adjustment LAFC is going to make. There's no doubt that they will look to try to make the adjustment and also just kind of make sure they don't fall behind 2-0 so early in the game. I mean, anytime when you fall behind the 8 ball in the playoffs, we have seen it time and time again. It's not going to go well for you unless you have an incredible comeback, which is kind of a thing that we have seen it before in the playoffs. But you don't want to rely on that. So should be very interesting to see how we see in game number three. And again, we saw a 7 seed able to beat a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Who would have said that maybe a 9 seed can beat a 1 seed in the playoffs? I don't think we have ever seen a 9 seed able to beat a 1 seed in the playoffs. In fact, it's been a while since I remember a 1 seed go down in the first round. Although we came very close a couple of years ago. I think in 2020 in the COVID shortened season, we almost saw the 1 seed getting knocked down in the first round. That was the game between Sporting KC and the Quakes. That game, Sporting KC had to rely on a PK shootout to move on to the next round. But there could be a sense that we maybe do so because again, this playoffs. I've said it in the playing round, and I think this could hold true that this might be a playoffs where there could be more surprises that is written down, and that again, I would not be surprised that if we're going to continue to see surprises, this could be a really open playoffs and could be a point where in the beginning you think it's very predictable of who's going to make it to the conference final, but ultimately with all these upsets that's happening in the first round, that definitely throw a huge wrench and just kind of throw a big question mark in terms of how this playoff is going to look. Now, obviously, that could still change in game number three, especially the favorites winning those third game as well. And you got to also remember all these teams that force a game number three, none of them are able to win that pivotal game three after losing the first game, and we'll see whether or not if that history might be broken too. I think last year we saw it a couple of times where it looked like it might break through, but unfortunately, all the home team in game number three is able to win. So we'll see whether or not if history repeats itself, where all the home team are able to win game number three, and that we still to this day does not have a team that lose the first game and able to come back to move on into the conference semifinal. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.